Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. We have a beautiful fall day outside. Well, it's not really beautiful. It is definitely overcast, but this morning when I woke up, it was like the low 40s. For us, it's like a shock because last week it was in like almost the 90s. So we went from like one extreme to the next, but I'm actually kind of enjoying it because we had soup last night for supper, and it just makes canning activities so much nicer when it's not really hot outside. So today we have one of our last canning projects that we're going to try to get completed. Well, we still have a little tiny bit, but this is one of the bigger canning activities. I am looking for my recipe. I put it over here. So today we are going to can green tomato enchilada sauce. So yesterday I went and harvested my back garden. All of my tomato plants were dead anyway, so I just got out there and I just pulled all of the tomato plants and I pulled all of the green tomatoes off of them. Now I still have a couple of tomato plants over in my side garden, which I will get to tonight because I think we're supposed to get in mid-30s tonight, so it's supposed to be a chilly night tonight. So I got out there yesterday, pulled all of those plants out. This is the little harvest we have from those back tomato plants. Now some of them I am going to let them go red because these will just slowly start to ripen. Like these ones right here, I'm going to get used for our green enchilada sauce. I definitely would consider this recipe one of our pantry staples. We have a couple that we definitely cannot go without. We have not had this on the pantry shelf for a couple of months now, so I am excited to finally get it made. And I have to wait until the end of the season to make it because this is when I use all my green tomatoes. I know that I can pick my tomatoes before the end of the season when they're green, but I like to let them ripen. At the end of the gardening season, I am usually overrun with green tomatoes, so I like to save this recipe for the very end of the gardening season. I just got it inside. I went outside quickly and just harvested a couple of things out of the garden. I'm going to go to my side garden and kind of do a really good harvesting tonight. Like I have a whole bunch of jalapeno peppers there, all of my Tabascos, all of that stuff's got to get picked before tonight because they're not calling for a freeze, but I would rather get them harvested before it is too late. So I harvested some dill this morning. So what I'm going to do is just get this hanging like this, and then I'll dry this dill. Oh, I love the smell of it. I actually don't have any dill preserved yet. My twine. I planted a whole bunch at the beginning of this season, and honestly, I forgot about it because I just got kind of overwhelmed with a whole bunch of stuff, and all of that dill went to seed. So I have not put up any dill yet this year, and I love to have dill like in my ranch seasoning. I do buy like a pre-made one from Azure Standard, but I like to add just a little bit more dill to that just because I really love like the dilly ranch. So I remembered today that I had to get out and get my dill harvested. So I just got some twine here and I'm just gonna cut some off. I could keep this in the fridge as well and keep it fresh for a little bit, but I don't have any recipes right now that really call for dill. You can just put it in a little mason jar with some water and just leave it in your fridge and it's fresh dill. I don't really have any recipes right now that are calling for it. So we're just gonna get it hanging up like this. And where am I gonna hang it from? Maybe I'll hang it from here. This is some lavender that is already dry, so I'll take that off. I'll have to get that put away, and then we will just hang this right here. This has all my rolling pins on it, but it also serves as like a drying rack. So I have some garlic here. This has already been cured. It's just here just so I remember that I have to use it. So I got that there. And then I have a whole bunch of cayenne peppers that I dried last year. I'm actually going to probably take those because I have a whole bunch that I need to harvest today. Probably going to take these and just run them quickly through my coffee grinder. Well, it's not, I don't use my coffee grinder for coffee. I use it just for herbs. So I'll probably run those quickly through that, and then that will give me a whole bunch of red pepper flakes. So the other thing I grabbed was some beets. So I have this bag that I ordered from Azure Standard. So we're gonna, if we have time after making the green enchilada sauce, we're gonna do a quick batch of canning beets. Just get these out of the way. And then I picked these for my friends. I've not shown you guys our newest member to our Sparkman homestead. Let's go outside and I'll show you. On Saturday, we went to a really large consignment Amish auction. And we just went and there was like really nothing that we liked there. So we decided to leave early. Anyways, on the way coming back home, we stumbled across a small animal, like poultry, auction. So we stayed for a while, and Stephen built us this rabbit hutch a little while ago. Hopefully you guys can hear me. It's pretty windy out here. Anyways, he built me this rabbit hutch a while ago because we really wanted to add rabbits to our homestead. I want to have rabbits not so that we can consume them, although that is a really, really good protein source and it is very popular around here. But I want to have rabbits so that I can actually compost their waste, like their manure, their poop. Because it is really, really good for the garden. So this is a really good thing to have if you are a gardener with a large gardening space, because you can take all of their waste and you can turn it into amazing compost. So Stephen, like I said, he built me this. We have this little catchment system on the bottom where all of their poop rolls down to here, and then I can just take a little broom, sweep it at the very end there and collect all of the waste. But anyways, we were at the auction and we found some little friends. We got, I don't know if you're going to be able to see in there. We got two little ones in there. That one in the back is a, we're not sure what it was. It was just labeled a dwarf rabbit. We believe that she is a Rex mix, like a dwarf Rex. And then this little guy here, we actually just picked up from a friend. He is a 5-week-old lion head. And so he's just kind of laying there. It's pretty windy out here, so close this up here. We got this little girl in here, and she is a Lionhead Holland Lop mix, and she is just so cute. I pick these collard greens from my garden just to give to these guys because they love these little snacks. They're pretty tired right now, so I'll just put it in there for them and they can come out later. They also probably don't know what to think about this camera. Come here. So we've been wanting rabbits for a really long time, and Stephen just kind of did this project. He just puttered along. It took him probably 6 months to make this, but we wanted to make sure that we had this already in place before we went and got rabbits, and he just finished it the other day. So when we drove past this auction, it was just like, time to get our rabbits. So I'm so excited to add those little guys. So we have 2 does and 1 buck. So we are probably going to have baby rabbits and lots of them very soon. But yeah, I'm excited to be able to have those on our homestead so that I can start really building my own compost. Now we do have the chickens. Their compost is amazing for the garden as well. Let's get out of the wind. Chicken manure actually has to compost at least 12 months before you can put it on your garden. So it is not a source that I can use directly right away. Rabbit poop is not considered a hot compost, and you can actually use that immediately on your garden. So that was kind of one thing that we really wanted to get onto the, well, I wanted to get, I don't know if Stephen really wanted it, but now he's definitely fallen in love with those little buddies. We don't know the age of the 2 that we picked up at the auction. You really don't know very much about them. There was definitely a lot of animals at that auction, and some of them were not in the best of shape. And I just said to Stephen, I'm like, some people really do not take care of their animals the way that we take care of our animals. Like, I realized that I baby my chickens. Like, my chickens are my pets, and they are definitely spoiled. So anyways, we picked up those 2 little friends on Saturday, and then we just picked up the male buck yesterday from a friend. So we've got our bunnies now, which is super exciting. So the other thing that I picked up outside was some cilantro. We are back into cilantro growing season now that it is nice and cool outside. And then I just picked a couple of really big green tomatoes out there so that we can use them in our recipe today. I'm probably not even going to end up using these tomatoes that I just picked because these are actually a yellow tomato and we love to eat these. So I am just going to leave them to ripen so that we can have some yellow tomatoes. So I'm going to grab some of these ones here. Just get a basket. All right, so we need 2 pounds of green tomatoes for the recipe. I am probably going to end up doubling the recipe. I just have my little scale here, and then just gonna weigh them. I just need to tear this basket first. 2 pounds, 4.5. So let me go and grab some more. Almost, maybe 2 more. There we go. All right, and then we need 1 cup of chopped white onions. I have used through all of my pre-chopped onions, so I'm gonna have to actually chop them this time. I'm thinking that while I'm chopping these ones, I might chop up a whole bunch and get them in my freezer again, because I love having them already pre-chopped in the freezer. It makes for very, very, very quick prep. So we will grab a couple of these. Now the recipe actually calls to use a white onion, but we will use yellow because that is what we have. We have yellow and we have red. So we'll just use what we got here. Just kind of feeling for more of the soft ones so that I can get those used up first. Okay, and then we already went and picked our cilantro. Let's see what else we need in this. We need to get some oil. I already have my garlic pre-chopped. We need some chicken broth and some cumin. Needs 2 cups of chicken broth. So we will get, because we're doubling it, we will get a quart. Chicken broth. Some chicken broth. And what else did I say? I also said cumin. Cumin. Get my big thing of cumin. It looks like I actually have to order some. I do not like to get this low on this. Cumin is one of the spices we use the most, so I do not like to get low on that. So I'm going to actually add that on my Azure order right now before I forget. My Azure order is actually closing tonight, so good thing I've seen that now so I can get that on there quickly. Let me go and add that before I forget, because honestly, I will forget in a matter of 2 seconds. Oh my goodness, guys. So after I came back from ordering my Azure stuff, I had pressed record on my camera and started just to go about the business, making the enchilada sauce, completely just interacting with the camera, talking away. And it wasn't until I actually sat down to upload some of the clips when I was in the middle of canning it that I realized that my microphone had been on mute the whole time. So some of this video, you're going to see my mouth moving, but there is no audio to it. I am so sorry. So I'm just going to do a voiceover for this part because, like I said at the beginning, this is one of our pantry staples, and I was so excited to share this video with you guys. And I honestly just don't want to delete these clips because I can still show you without actually having to talk to the camera. I'll just do a voiceover for you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started with chopping the onions. So this recipe calls for 1 cup of onions, but we're going to be doubling it. So I'm going to need 2 cups of onions. This chopper gets the job done in a matter of a couple of minutes, like not even a couple minutes. I think I was under a minute and I got all of those onions all chopped up. So I was just showing you what it is. I'll leave it linked for you guys in the video description if you're interested in it. You don't need a chopper. It just makes this job so much quicker and your eyes don't bleed as much. So anyways, we're going to get all the onions chopped up. I have more than enough for this recipe plus a lot for my freezer, which I'm excited to have chopped onions again in the freezer. Next up, we're going to get all of the tomatoes prepped. So I'm just going to get them washed off and I'm just going to remove any of the stems on them. Whenever I'm doing a canning project, I really like to have everything pre-prepped, just ready to go. I just find it makes it a really seamless process and it honestly makes it a lot easier. So what I'm doing right now is I've decided that I'm going to chop my tomatoes up in this chopper. You do not have to do this because the recipe actually calls you to puree everything. So you could just leave them in really big chunks if you want. I just wanted to chop them up so that it literally cuts the cooking time in half. It's just, if they're smaller, they'll get softer a lot quicker. So I'm not coring the tomatoes. I'm just taking the kind of the blossom end off and just making sure if there's any like major blemishes on them, I take that off. Once I got all of the tomatoes chopped up, I just set them aside in a large bowl and just got everything else prepped. So we need a really large stock pot for this, and we're going to add add about 2 tablespoons of oil to the bottom of that stock pot, and then we're going to add our onions. So this recipe calls for 1 cup of chopped white onions. We're just going to add in 2 cups of just regular sweet onions, and then it also calls for 2 tablespoons of chopped garlic. So we're going to do 4 tablespoons. So you just want to saute all of that until those onions and garlic are nice and soft and fragrant. Once they get to that point, you are going to stir in all of your other ingredients. So I'm going to come in and add my 2 pounds of chopped green tomatoes, or in my case, I'm going to use the 4 pounds again, doubling. And then I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken broth, 2 teaspoons of salt, 3 tablespoons of ground cumin, and 2 teaspoons of black pepper. That is what the recipe calls for. So again, I just going to say it again. Doubled it. So the recipe also calls for an 8-ounce can of chopped green chilies. I only had actually 1 store-bought can because I have committed to making my own. They're so easy to make. I'll link the video for you guys if you want to see how I made the green chilies. Again, so easy to do. So I just added 4 jars because these were 4-ounce jars, and then you're just going to stir everything together. Now, just a note about the salt. I actually added a touch bit more salt than what the recipe actually called for because I have unsalted chicken broth. But if you have salted broth, just kind of maybe do a taste test and see what you like for the salt. And then we're going to come in and add a 1/4 cup of chopped cilantro leaves. And then what you want to do is just bring that to a boil. Once this gets to a boil, we are going to reduce the heat to a simmer, and we're going to cook it for about 25 minutes or until the tomatoes are soft. Even with me chopping those tomatoes up really small, it still took about 25 minutes. I'm just showing you guys in this pot how much that sauce actually reduced in the 25 minutes. So after that point, what you can do is if you have an immersion blender, you can actually just immersion blend it in the pot. I started to do that and realized that it wasn't getting to the pureed liquid that I wanted it to. It still had a lot of chunks. We do not like chunks in our enchilada sauce. So I gave up on the stick blender and actually went and got my Vitamix and decided that I was going to run it through that because this does very, very quick work of it. Should have did this in the very beginning. So again, I'm going to leave that note on my recipe just to do it in the blender. So you're going to just quickly blend this depending on your blender. Like mine only literally took 10 seconds to blend it. Once you get it all blended, then I just added it to a separate pot because I didn't want to mix the blended stuff with the unblended sauce. And I had to do a couple of different batches here because there was quite a bit and I didn't want to have it explode, even though it did anyways. It went all over my counters and my cupboard, so I had to wash that off. But yeah, so I did it in a couple of different batches and then just added it to this pot. Now, because we are canning a tomato product, the acidity in it has to be right in order to water bath can it. So because I'm doing pint-sized jars, I'm going to come in and add 1/8 teaspoon of citric acid. You can actually refer to the Ball canning book, and it actually gives you directions on what to add when you are canning low acidity tomato products. You can also add lemon juice. I believe it would be 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in this. So once I get the citric acid in, I'm going to fill everything up and I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch headspace in each of these jars. And then I'm just going to come and debubble it all and just readjust any of the headspace if needed. Once everything's all good, then we are going to come and wipe the rims off with a nice clean washcloth or rag. You just want to make sure that there's no debris on the top of the jars that would interfere with the seal at all. Then we're going to add our lids and our rings to fingertip tight, and then these are going to go into a water bath canner. Now we're going to water bath can these because they are pints for 40 minutes. I honestly don't know what you would do if you were doing quarts. You'd have to do your own research for that. Again, I think I've said it in last week's video. Google is a wonderful resource for that. I just unfortunately don't can them in quarts, so I don't know. So after the 40 minutes, we're going to let them rest for 5 minutes. I just take it directly off of the heat for those 5 minutes because I have an electric burner and the burner tends to stay hot even after I turn the element off. So I just completely remove them off, let them just chill out with the lid off for 5 minutes, and then I take them and set them to rest on here. I had done another canning project earlier in the week and I filmed it because I was so excited to show you guys. I had made my restaurant style salsa. Now I just call it restaurant style because it is very, very similar to the style of salsa that you would get at a Mexican restaurant. This is by far our favorite salsa. I have tried so many different recipes and this one is definitely our favorite. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I did last week when I showed you how to make the diced tomatoes. I just need to make sure that we're skinning the tomatoes. I have made salsa before where I have not skinned the tomatoes. I'm using tomatoes, not potatoes. But I have made salsa in the past where I have not skinned them, and I do not like the skin in my salsa. I definitely would not skip this step. It makes for a way better tasting salsa. So to skin them, if you missed last week's video, I will leave it linked up here for you. But if you did miss it, then all you do is you just blanch your tomatoes for 30 seconds, remove them right away and put them into an ice bath, and then they just peel really, really simple. So to make this recipe, you don't even need to use fresh tomatoes. You could just use canned diced tomatoes if you don't have the fresh stuff. Like I could easily do this recipe in the winter. That's what I love about this. So once my tomatoes are all skinned, I'm just going to dice them into really big chunks. It doesn't matter because we actually puree this. And then I'm going to come in and add some onions. Now, the original recipe that I originally got a long time ago called for a Spanish onion. I use whatever onion I have available and it just works. So this particular kind, I had some red onions from last year's garden. And so I just added 2 bags of frozen onions in there. So a total of about 3 large onions. And then you want to add about 5 jalapeno peppers. Again, I had frozen stuff in my freezer, so I used that. And then about 4 to 5 cloves of garlic, and then half a cup of fresh cilantro. I just chop mine in there and it works perfect. Again, I'm not too picky with how big these are left because we puree this in the end. Once you get everything added to that large pot, you are going to heat this to a boil, and then you want to reduce the heat to simmer. Once everything is nice and soft, you're going to come in and add 1 cup of a white distilled vinegar and 2 tablespoons of salt. I just used a Redmond's real salt in this, but you could probably just use any salt that you really just have available. And then what you want to do is just come in and use a stick blender and puree this. If you do not have a stick blender, you could probably just put this in a food processor and lightly mix it up. I just really like this step because we are not fans of super chunky salsa. Steven is not a fan of onions, so he doesn't like to really bite into the onions. But if I come in and puree this, it's perfect. Like you don't get huge chunks of the vegetables, and it's just very similar to this type of salsa that you actually get at that Mexican restaurant. Now I do leave a little bit, like you can see there, I'm showing you just a little bit of chunks because I don't want this to be like a soup. I still want it to, you know, have a little substance to it, but definitely not big chunks. So I'm just gonna puree this until it gets to the consistency that I like. And then I'm gonna heat this back up to a simmer on a low heat, and I'm gonna simmer this for about 60 to 90 minutes. Because I'm not using a Roma tomato or like a paste tomato, the tomatoes I'm using are like a beefsteak, and they are very watery. Like they have a lot of liquid in them. So I really want to kind of reduce that amount of liquid and kind of thicken it up a bit. You can see there how much it reduced. So again, you wanna like boil this for about 60 to 90 minutes on a low simmer until it gets to the texture that you like with the amount of liquid. So after that time, we are going to finally get these canned up. I am deciding to can these into quart-sized jars because we are just blowing through salsa lately, which is perfect because it is the end of the season. Everything is just kind of sitting on the table that needs to get used. All of the tomatoes are done. I have jalapenos. The cilantro is finally growing again. This is like honestly the perfect time to make salsa. So I'm going to use some citric acid in this. I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon because I'm doing these in quarts. If you're gonna do these in pints, you're just gonna use 1/8 teaspoon of citric acid. Again, like with the enchilada sauce, you could use lemon juice as well in this. So once I get everything put into these hot jars, again, because I'm doing hot salsa, I need to have hot jars and I need my water bath canner water to also be hot. So everything is the same temperature. I'm just gonna wipe the rims off really well here because I tended to spill a little bit. We're gonna add our rings and our lids, and we're going to tighten these to fingertip tight. Because we added the vinegar and the citric acid, these are safe to water bath can. So we are going to water bath these for 15 minutes. Now you just want to make sure that the jars are covered with at least 1 inch of water above them. So I didn't have that, so I'm just going to top them up a little bit. And then once it comes to a full rolling boil, then we are going to start our timer for that 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes, we're just going to remove them from the heat, let them kind of cool down with the lid off for the 5 minutes. And after the 5 minutes, we're just going to let them sit here for at least 12 to 24 hours for them to get a good seal. But this is such a good salsa recipe. All right, for the last project, we are going to get to our beets. I definitely had enough time to get this project done, so I was really excited. So what I'm doing is, these are the beets that I actually picked from my garden this morning. And so I just want to leave about 2 inches above those beets, so you can just kind of see where I'm cutting the beet greens. All of these beet greens I actually just brought out to my rabbits, and they love them. It was such a good snack for them. If the beet greens are in really good shape, you can actually eat them yourself. They are really delicious, like sauteed, but I just wanted to give them to the rabbits because I honestly, these were not in the best of shape for me to saute up. Once I got all those greens removed, then I just wanted to give them a really good scrub. Now we are going to be boiling them and eventually skinning them, but I just really don't want all of that dirt in the water, so I'm just giving them a nice good scrub. I have that really large pot, and I just put some water in it and just brought that water to a boil. Once that water reached the boil, then I'm going to add all of those beets in here, and we are going to cook them for 25 minutes. This is kind of the same philosophy with the tomatoes. It makes them really easy to peel. You don't want to can them with that skin on. It wouldn't be the best. So after the 25 minutes, you're just going to take them off of the heat, drain them, and then put them directly into some cold water. That cold water is supposed to stop the cooking process and make them easy to peel. But as you can see here, some of these just did not want to peel. I was honestly struggling with some of them, especially the ones that I actually got from Azure. For some reason, I don't know if it's the variety or not, or that maybe they were just bigger, but they just did not want to peel. So I actually had to come in and use a vegetable peeler with that. Perfectly fine to use a vegetable peel. It's just, I don't like to waste any, and a lot of the beets come off when you peel them, but it's fine. I gave it to my chickens anyways. So once you get them all peeled, then what you're going to do is just dice them up. Now you can can the beets, especially the really small ones. You can can them whole if you want. You do not even need to do this, but some of these beets were pretty large, so I like to have them cut up into bite-sized pieces or bigger pieces, like about 2 inch by 2 inch, maybe 1 inch. I don't know exactly what it is. I just kind of eyeball it and just bite-sized pieces, or pieces that I could take with a fork and eat. Not huge pieces. But if you'd like, again, you can just do these in like slices or in whole pieces. I think the bag that I actually purchased from Azure was just a mixed bag, and some of these beets were really beautiful. So the recipe that we are using is from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preservation, or Home Preserving. I will leave that linked for you guys in the video description. So this is a pressure canning recipe. So I have my countertop pressure canner out and just all warm. These jars are also warm. You need to hot pack your beets. Well, at least the recipe in this canning book suggests to hot pack them. So I'm going to fill them up to 1 inch headspace, and then I'm going to come and put some boiling water. Again, I'm talking to you guys, but the audio isn't kicking in. So again, sorry about that. So we're going to do 1 inch headspace. We're going to top it off with boiling water, and then we're going to come and debubble these and then just readjust the headspace if needed. Some of them, as soon as I debubbled them, I lost a whole bunch of that water in there. So you just want to top that up with the boiling water. And then next up, we're going to get these rims really clean. Again, not because it's sticky, but just I don't want any beet pieces on there to prevent the seal from happening. We're going to add our lids and then our rings to fingertip tight. And then again, these are going to be pressure canned. Now, because we are doing pints, we are going to do these for 30 minutes. If you are doing quarts, you would just do them for 35 minutes. Now, the other thing you notice that I did not add was salt, and you can definitely add salt to these. You could do it as you want. I just don't like to put salt in my stuff because I like to be able to salt it later on when I'm cooking it. So got them all in there. there and we're just gonna press go and let that thing do its thing. I love that canner. It's just, you don't even have to think about it. So the one thing that I actually did in this summer was I made some pickled beets. I filmed it, but never ended up actually including it on any of the videos. So because we're just doing regular beets, I want to show you guys how you can make a variation of them and actually do pickled beets. To get started with this recipe, you're going to need to have at least 7.5 pounds of beets, and you're just going to follow the exact same steps that I did before. You're going to peel them and chop them, just the same way with boiling them for the 25 minutes. And then to a large pot, you're going to add 4 cups of a 5% vinegar. You can use white, but I actually chose to use an apple cider vinegar in this. I just love the taste that it gives them. And then you're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of a canning or pickling salt, 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of water. And you have the option, if you would like, you can add some spices to this like cinnamon sticks or whole cloves, but I chose not to do that. So you're going to add all of that liquid into the large pot, and then you are going to bring that to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you're going to add your beets in, and you're going to add about 4 to 6 chopped onions. You don't have to do the onions if you don't want to, but I just love them because they get to be pickled onion. And so you're going to add that all together, stir it up, and let that simmer for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, you're going to remove that from the heat, and you're going to fill your jars up with the beets and onions and leave at least 1/2 inch of headspace. Once you get those jars all filled up with the beets and onions, then you're going to come in and add your vinegar solution. Again, you're leaving that 1/2 inch headspace, so you need to kind of come in and debubble and just readjust if need be. And then we are going to wipe the jars really good with this, and then add your lids and rings. So this is a water bath recipe. So we are going to water bath these for 15 minutes. Now you would do 1/2 pints and pints at the same temperature. The recipe actually does not give any guidelines if you decide to do it in a quart-sized jar, so I'm not sure exactly what you would can that at. Now what I'm showing you here is one of the rings actually had a little dent on it, so I just swapped it out. You do not want to use any damaged rings or lids on this. You want to make sure that your rings are in perfect condition, same with your lids, because you want to make sure you get that good seal. So we are going to get that into the water bath canner. Once it gets to a full rolling boil, we're going to start the timer for the 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes, we're going to take them off the heat, take the lid off, and let them rest for those 5 minutes, and then take them out and let them rest on this towel for at least 12 to 24 hours. So that was it for those pickled beets. So delicious. I love this recipe. So I actually ended up having a little bit of that brine left over, and I did not want to waste it because it is so delicious. So I actually decided to make some pickled beets with it, or not beets, sorry, pickled eggs with it. So what I did was I just took that leftover brine and just put it into a quart-sized jar. Now I had already pre-boiled my eggs, so they were already hard-boiled eggs, and I just peeled them, and then I took some red onion because I am honestly a fan of pickled onions. It is like one of my most favorite toppings on everything. I don't have a recipe to link for you guys for this. I just had the leftover brine and just thought this would be perfect for a pickled egg. But anyway, so you're gonna take a red onion, and I just wanted to thinly slice that just so it fit into the jar a little bit better. And then I have my eggs already hard boiled and peeled, and then we're just gonna add everything to the jar. This is actually a little bit too much brine in this jar, and I ended up having to dump some of it off. But yeah, just add your eggs in, put a lid on, give it a little shake, and put it in the fridge. I would recommend leaving it for at least a couple weeks in the fridge before you try it, just to let that brine really just kind of absorb into the eggs. It's so really delicious. Nice little snack to have on top of a salad. So that is going to be it for today's video. I want to again apologize. I know I've already said it a couple times about the audio issue. I will not do that again. I've definitely learned to double check things. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.